Welcome to the Restoration Group podcast, where we are often silly. Let's be honest with ourselves, often silly, but always serious about investing in Oklahoma City businesses and leaders who desire to integrate their Christian faith into their business. I am your host, Clay Steves. We are honored that you are with us today. Thanks for sharing your time. And I am joined by my co-hosts, Aaron Scott and Michael Mead. How we doing, friends?
Feeling good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Feeling good?
Yeah, I just did some venting to some coworkers in between recording. It was really helpful.
Was
for
it
me.
about Michael and I, just to clarify?
You never know.
Oh, well, okie dokie. Michael, how are you?
I thought I was doing good.
Do we need to have a crucial conversation? Is
not
that,
sure.
do we need to reference back? Because we are in a series, right? We're in a little
Yeah.
series right here. Thank you. Thank you. We're in a 4-part series, actually the last of a
Saving the best for
4-part
last,
series.
maybe?
Woohoo! Well,
see.
is that because it's your episode? Yeah. Okay. Got it. But this series is focused on the art. Ooh. And since we're going to talk about systems, I like that balance. The art of balancing performance and dignity in a healthy, integrated culture, right? And how we have done that. You know, the first episode, we just talked about kind of an overarching view of this concept of always balancing, never balance, with performance and dignity and why they both matter. The second one, we talked about crucial conversations. Woo! That was fun. Third one, we talked about accountability, also uncomfortable. And now we segue to the fourth, which is... What, Aaron? What do we got?
We're talking about systems.
Yes.
Systems to support this idea of the balance between performance and dignity.
Love it.
I feel like we made a good Oreo. Like the first one was kind of easy
Oreo?
to digest. This one won't be as uncomfortable, but those middle two.
But an Oreo, I like the middle better,
Yeah, it's
so
a
I'm a
reverse
little
Oreo.
confused.
It's an Oreo for an Enneagram 8.
An inside out.
Yeah,
difficult
that a
things.
girl. Yeah, Oreo for an
Or
Enneagram
Oreo,
8. Yeah.
whatever. Okay, so yes, we are talking about systems to support this idea of the balancing act between performance and dignity.
Yeah.
And in light of all of those previous conversations, we thought it would be a good idea to have a more practical one. Those were more focused on the concepts or ideas a little bit, things that we believe are important. For sure. Today's episode is, again, it's a much more practical take on, okay, I've listened to those previous episodes. I'm on board with, I want to find that balance, that continual balancing act of performance and dignity at my workplace. I'm working to get better at crucial conversations. I'm working to put accountability in place. But, how do I do that? And how do I know that I'm doing it? And how do I know that it's working?
Nuts and bolts.
The nuts and bolts, absolutely. So, when we want to do all those things, having the right systems in place beforehand, I believe, is probably best. That's not always going to be the case.
Yeah.
But how do we actually make that happen? I wrote a note here that I want to be careful with my verbiage, but I believe that having the right systems in place is a proactive mindset that can keep us in an offensive place of control, and that sounds really cringy.
Like an Enneagram 8?
It does, but I mean it in a really positive way because it's the invert, or the other side of that would be being reactively controlled by our emotions, which is a very Enneagram 8 thing. And so, again, Enneagram aside, I think it's easy for us as business leaders or business owners to wait until something happens and then we are reacting to that.
Yeah, girl.
We want to have accountability, but it's just a good theory in our minds, yeah, that sounds great. And then something happens, we haven't really set anything, any parameters, any guidelines for ourselves, something happens, and then we're just reacting to it, and that's never as beneficial or healthy as... That's a story you tell later where you're like, didn't do it well here,
Never had to tell any of those stories.
Well, I did on the Crucial Conversations episode.
Oh,
You
wait.
can go back
Yeah.
and listen to.
Yeah.
And so how do we take the place of offensive control of this as much as we can? Of course, there's always going to be variables and things that are outside of our control, but how can we, to the best of our ability, set some parameters proactively to help us set up for success, some systems, you might say, to help us with this performance versus dignity. So first, I have several questions, so keep your answers succinct.
I was like, keep my answers to myself? What do you want?
Yourself. You just read them in the show notes. You guys are going to have to type them out. No. But I first wanted to hear a little bit about why does this matter? So hearing from you guys, Michael and Clay, why does it matter to set up systems at all? Why does it matter? We kind of already covered in the intro, but why does it matter to you?
I think this is a Special Forces quote. If not, Clay will correct me because I think you'll know where it's from.
Ruh-roh.
And I hope I get the quote right. It is, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your level of systems.
Ooh, I have heard that.
You fall to the highest level of your systems.
The highest level.
Yeah.
So I think that's why this matters is
Good.
we have this idealistic view of like, oh yeah, we're just going to do this because it matters and we care.
Wow.
And that's just not reality in any aspect of our life. And so in this context, if this really does matter and we don't create a system, we will not live up to it in the way that we desire or want to.
No matter how much we want
No
to.
matter how badly we want to. That's just human nature.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Michael's answer was real. Well done. Good job. I think systems are what closes the gap between our intentions and reality. And we even talked about intentions in some previous episodes. But all of this, to truly have a balancing culture between performance and dignity, like there has to be clarity of expectations. What, and systems is really just like how we do things, right? It's not like we don't have to overly complicate even what a system is. The agreed upon, clarified way of how we do something. And you can't hold somebody accountable to certain behaviors, certain performance metrics, if it isn't, clearly in front of them and clearly available for someone to know what level do I need to perform, what level, how do I behave? Like those are the things that allow you to live this stuff out. So I think systems like really actually just bring it to life and close the gap between intentions and reality.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good from both of you. Again, if you're a business owner and you're saying, I want to balance my business between performance and dignity.
Yeah.
It sounds great in theory.
Yeah.
But systems, what I hear you guys continuing to say is like, that's going to help us actually put some things in place.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how can systems support this concept in a really practical way? So you can use some specific examples if you want, but how can systems actually help us with this balancing act?
Since Michael was so good last time,
I can give some ideas, or I trust you guys have better ones than I do.
what you got?
I would love to hear what you think, Clay.
No. I think so. Let's we kind of like riffed on it for earlier, but so I'm an ENFP Enneagram 7, right? We talked about yours earlier being an 8, and so Enneagram 7s we have a little bit of a maybe a reputation, maybe a tendency for being all over the place, doing things in a scattered way. Often we got to keep all of our options open. We're often very charismatic and high energy and extroverted, and so we can work our way through stuff and produce results even in that. But that actually consumes an immense amount of energy, not just of ourselves, but of those around us. And so I think if we're talking about the practical like reasons for the system, so I guess maybe I just gave a little bit of why for me it matters so much. Sure. But the how is I've put those places, and 15.5 again. We need to reach out to them.
15.5. Could you sponsor an
This
episode
is the 42nd episode of 200 and something that we have talked about you. So let's get on that game. But that's a specific platform we've used, and that's just ours. But I would say having a platform in place for me to get information. At a consistent rhythm, as someone who is scattered, as someone who have a tendency to be scattered, I have a tendency to be all over the place and come up with new ideas. Having a very consistent place to get really good information from my people that report directly to me is a key for me to be able to accurately set expectations, accurately set behavioral, and also stay in touch with the human element of the people who work closest to me, directly reporting to me, next to me, et cetera. And so the system specifically that I have used and found of such great benefit is that weekly check-in. And so it's literally just once a week, 15, maybe some people do it in 5, maybe some people take 25, but an average of 15 minutes answering 5 questions for me as a leader to touch base on like what is going on in your life and what is going on in your work has been a very practical thing that I've asked my people to do that feeds me incessantly and allows me to keep I'm going to say a pulse on how the culture and balancing of performance and dignity is. Yeah.
And honestly, that sort of thing takes the pressure off you as a leader, that you don't have to like remember to like,
It's good.
oh man, Michael, how's that project going? Or like, oh, John Mark, you just got back from vacation. Like, how are things going? Or, oh, I knew you guys were going through something difficult at home. Like, is there a way I can pray for you? Like, it takes the pressure off you of having to like remember
Yes.
to constantly ask or check in.
Yes. So you do the work once and then you allow some sort of a software structure system to bring that information to you so you don't have to be trying to remember it over and over again.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think another way we have created a system to maintain a balance of performance and dignity within our leadership team is we do a weekly, we call it tactical meeting, where we just talk about what are the decisions we need to make
Yeah.
over the next week in our business. And we always capture the action items for each team member
Ooh, that's
in the
good.
decision column.
Yeah.
And then each week we start the meeting by reviewing past decisions. Hey, did
Yeah.
this happen yet? If not, why? And so it's got that accountability piece.
Yeah.
Maybe they needed help and we're able to support them if it hasn't happened yet. Maybe they just forgot and needed that reminder and accountability to execute on the decision.
Yeah.
So we've just got that weekly structure of being accountable to the decisions that we made, which
Yeah.
is really 2 episodes ago, we talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
That's a system of how we do accountability within our leadership structure.
Yeah.
That's really good. I thought of one that my teammate put into place last year sometime. And so our world is HR things. And so she made a system of, she put a reminder, and it's annual. It's literally like once a year. So it's not even a big deal. But again, it's taking them one moment to put it on the calendar as an annual reminder, because chances are I'm going to forget in a year. Not chances, 100% I'm going to forget in a year.
Chances are 100%.
But she put an annual reminder on our calendars to go through our just our policies and procedures as a business, and to just comb through those and review them and see, like, is there anything we need to change here?
Yeah.
And that had never crossed my mind, but I thought was such a good idea. And when we did it for the first time, we actually came up with several that are like,
Nice.
oh, like we either this made sense at one time, but it
Yeah.
doesn't anymore. Or
Yeah.
on the balance of performance and dignity, here's a very tangible example. She brought up, man, I think our parental leave policy is kind of like out of date, and like we need to make that a more robust policy, which was a longer process of.
Well, I think even the
going-
fact that you called it parental leave was one of the changes you made, because
That's
wasn't
true.
it
It
just
was maternity
that's what I'm
leave,
saying. Yeah. You honestly, like, that was one of the changes out of it, was expanding it out of just maternity
Right.
leave. Yeah.
But had we not had the system in
Sure.
place to say, hey, once a year we should just revisit these? Because prior to that, and this is no offense to anyone prior to us looking at this, but like prior to that, it's like, I don't know, this was from 8 years ago, and so that's not even on staff anymore made it a policy, and we can't even really remember why. And so instead of just having these old existing things that were, maybe making effects in our business and with our people now,
Yeah.
I think it really showed a lot of value to both our business and our people, to our performance and our dignity, to say, hey, once a year we want to revisit and make sure that these are upholding both of those and honoring both sides.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate it. And what an easy system, if you will, of like once a year, we just put a reminder on our calendar that
Yeah.
repeats and reminds us once a year to like, hey, you should look at this.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, that was easy.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be complex.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be multi-layered or multifaceted. It needs to serve whatever purpose it needs to serve, even if it's literally just a recurring calendar invite for once a year. So
Yep.
it
Yep.
can be simple.
That's good.
So when we're talking about in a workplace that we are putting these systems in place, who would you say should be involved in this? Like, who are the people that should be making the choices on what systems we are using? Is it
Just me.
just a leadership team? Okay,
Yeah,
just
no,
the CEO.
no.
Episode ends here. Is there,
That's
okay,
how it
you
is.
should have, like,
And we're done. A gavel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a
That's
judge
it.
here. Not a judge. No.
But who should be involved in these decisions?
I think it depends on the level of the system. Like, for example, right, I'm the CEO of Habakkuk, one of our companies. If we are talking about how at a specific hospital, certain reps check things in, check things out, and those people are, let's say, on an org chart, 2 positions, like there's 2 people between us. I shouldn't be deciding what that system is. I think the people that are hands-on on it should have a high level of input to it. Because again, we're talking about a culture. Now the pride in me was just like, I might be able to make the best system. And actually, I just called myself out before I said it. But the truth of the matter is actually, no, I'm disconnected from that. I did that at one point in my career, but the truth is I'm not on the ground. So just because I'm higher up on a quote unquote org chart doesn't mean I'm the best person to choose what that system is. Because I think that actually robs, if we're talking about dignity, like people aren't going to be able to feel heard. They're the ones who know, they're the ones on the ground. So I would say the leader who is closest to that, and leader is probably a manager title, right? Or on a leadership team, the person who's closest to it, to the people who day to day are doing this said system or responsibility, are the ones that I think should be making a call. Now they could go upstream, bring it to the leadership team, have discussions. If you're a really small business, 2 or 3 people in true startup mode, well, it's going to be the 2 or 3 of you, and the leader is making it. But maybe the highest level leader that is the lowest level leader who is closest to that systems, and then it's like day-to-day function.
I think that's really good that you mentioned in that scenario that actually strips away the dignity of the people who are having to execute whatever that system is or that decision is. I also think it can lead to poor performance, because I think there can be I know I've experienced this where it's like someone so disconnected from what I'm doing is making this system that I have to do. And it's like, you don't understand that doesn't even make sense. Like that doesn't compute. And so then and I'm not saying this is good, but it's a reality. Like I'm building up some resentment and some bitterness. And then I'm probably not like actually using that system as it's being, told to use it, because I'm finding my own workarounds, because I disagree with it, because it doesn't make sense. Like I think it can build up a lot of unhealthy things within your work culture because I think at its core you would call that micromanaging. I think when that is in play, it can hurt both dignity and performance, and lead to a lot of unhealthy things within that. So it's a good example.
I think for our leaders, it will be hard to accept this, but let's say you could create the best system, Clay, in this example.
I already said I could. sorry.
In this hypothetical world.
sorry. Checking my own heart.
Let's say you are capable of making the best system.
Yes.
But you're not on the ground doing it. Ooh. The people on the ground think they have a better system. Mm-hmm. It is my opinion that empowering them to make the system, even if it's not as good, is going to be better, because they're bought in and like more likely to follow through with it and live in the system. Yeah. And so I think that is it's kind of one of those things that, like, if you're developing someone, if they can do it 70% as well as you, then let them do it. Yeah. I would kind of apply that same filter in this. Is maybe you've learned some lessons about why your system's better. Yeah. And we want to just transfer those lessons. Yeah. But sometimes we have to let people go on their own journey and learn them firsthand. Yeah. And be there to guide them and just make sure they don't fall off the track. Right. Yeah.
And I think this is the always balancing. Like we've used that phrase, always balancing, never balance, because even in the example you gave there, what if the system I can see might be superior? And so our performance might drop a little bit, but if we're toggling up on the dignity side, and then like this is the balancing piece, and you have to have clear standards, again, how we do things, as to where like dropping a performance is too low, to where, especially like, one of our companies is in healthcare. And so you cannot be dropping performance too low because of the fact that we are dealing with patients' lives. Like this isn't just, which cup, to reference a previous episode, cup color. But I think that's the kind of always tensioning, and then tying it to what you talked about, setting up the appropriate review cadence to be able to come back and look at those things is just a system to keep the right balancing of performance and dignity. So I think that was a great example you provided right there. Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. Last question. How do you know if you're missing it? Like, what are the red flags as someone in a leadership position that you might see, or maybe you have a blind spot, but you're starting to gain some awareness? And what are some things that you would look out for that confirms, like, okay, this is not going well, like we need some systems here, or maybe I am micromanaging, or we are not setting the right guardrails for us to do this balancing act between performance and dignity? How do you know when you're missing the mark?
Jumping in. I will say, if you are consistently, so think about our previous episodes in the series, if you're getting into those conversations, like your crucial conversations, you're holding people accountable, and the consistent feedback you're getting from team members is, well, I didn't know I was supposed to be doing blank. Now, sometimes that might be on the team member. I want to clarify because maybe you did really clearly communicate it. Maybe there was a good system that kept whatever was decided in front of them. But the other reality, and I think more often the case is it wasn't clearly clarified. It wasn't like crystal clear clarified for them what the expectation was. There wasn't a good system of follow-up or of where it would be visual and visible to them very consistently. Those are the things that often drop out that then lead to a disconnect between an employee who's like, wait a minute, I didn't know I'm missing the mark here because of the fact that we didn't put in. So I think that could be a symptom of if that's happening consistently, or if we're reinventing the wheel on stuff over and over again, like we're encountering the same challenge over and over again. Those would be symptoms to me that say like, oh, we have a systems problem because we haven't figured out like how we do this to just then answer when this pops up, this is what we do. When this pops up, this is what we do. Those would be symptoms of systems problems to me. Yeah.
On that first one, it reminded me of a quote I heard of communication can prevent even more problems than it can solve.
Whoa, okay, hold on. Say that again.
Communication can prevent even more problems than it can solve.
Interesting. That's
and
really good.
I always thought that was really good because when you face a problem and you're reacting to it, communication is key and it's crucial to solving that.
Yeah.
But what would have been even better is it can prevent that. So like you're saying, like proactively being clear, setting the expectation, this is the system we're going to use.
Yeah.
These are the ways that we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And so then when you don't do that, I have already proactively, it can solve that problem before it's even a problem.
Yeah.
Because I've been clear to that employee versus what you're saying of like the employee saying, I had no idea.
And I want to keep riffing on this. I want to stay on it because that's really strong in my opinion. Like listener, watcher, please grab that. Something I learned a long time ago, and I'm using the word communication here, is that like real communication is a transfer of understanding. So communication isn't I said it. And so a system that I learned, and again, I had this given to me because of the fact that so often I would say something and I said it. Like that means you heard it, right? Like you got what I said, is the like active listening system. And I'm sincere that that's a system. So if I'm cascading to something, I'm asking, say it back to me. And so many times, and Kara, my assistant, has been such a gift to me because we meet every day. Here's our system. We have a daily check-in and we power through a long list of things. And at the end of it, I'm like, okay, say back to me everything I just said to you, and we catch disconnects, which is a system that helps us. Like then she feels empowered because when I say something and there's a gap between us and she goes and does something else, like the performance drops, how she feels about her own job drops, like how much, like that's just a reality, all the things. And so this system of active listening, which is what you're talking about, the communication on the front side, really being able to, that's strong. Yeah, that was good. Thank you for that. Mikey, what do you think?
I think it's just different language of what you're saying. Like the phrase in my mind is if you find yourself solving the same problem over and over again. Yeah. So to stick with that, if every week you're having to follow up with Kara and say, hey, you executed on this and it was different than what I said.
Yes.
If you're having that conversation every week, then you have a system problem.
Yeah, it's good.
And so that would just be like, if you keep solving the same problem over and over and you feel crazy, like why are we just running in circles? It might be time to reevaluate your systems.
And I want to we are having some of that ourselves right now. Like literally in some meetings that we had earlier today where we're like, oh my gosh, we are going through the same thing over and over again. And so we are trying to figure out, okay, we need to do systematically something different because we are not getting. And so I just think that's the journey.
Yeah. It reinforces what you've been saying on all these episodes. It's a journey. You're not going to arrive. So don't beat yourself up if you're noticing some of these red flags. It's just, again, that constant tightrope walk of like, okay, we're facing something new because we're in a different season as a business, or we have different circumstances right now, and we're realizing the systems that once served us don't serve us anymore, or we didn't need a system in this place and now we do, or we're catching some of these red flags. So absolutely, it's a journey, and you never arrive, but you can constantly move forward on that journey.
I would actually be encouraged by breaking systems. I think growth breaks systems. So if your company's growing, you should expect your systems to break and need to evolve. So really don't feel frustrated. It could almost be a metric of progress of like, okay, we had 10 employees. Now we have 20. So the system that used to work doesn't work anymore.
So we just need to do differently.
And because we're doing this well,
Yeah.
our business is growing. Our old system doesn't work.
Our budgeting system is a great example.
That
of
is a great
Totally.
It
one.
used to be an Excel spreadsheet, and that was totally fine
Yeah.
and worked well and functioned and did
Yes.
what it needed to do for a season. And the business grew,
Yeah.
and an
And the
Excel
complexity
spreadsheet-
grew. Yeah.
It can no longer function in that way, so we had to get a new system. But you're right, it's a positive thing.
Yeah. So just expect your systems to break over time and
good.
view that as a sign of growth and progress, and you'll never arrive. And
It's really good
if you got problems to solve, it means you're not dead. It's my favorite quote.
because it's from you.
It's not.
At least on the board, it had his
It was on the
initials.
board. It was on the
It had his initials on the board. That means it's from him. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to wrap up with our verse here is Proverbs 15:22. And so, like, I have a verse, but then I have, like, some explanation. So that verse you've probably heard before. Plans fail when there is no counsel, but with abundant advisors, they are established. I think a paraphrased version you hear a lot is, like, or it's a different...
Translation.
It's a different translation and a different verse that kind of says a similar thing of, like, the people perish where there is no vision. Like, that gets used a lot, things like that. But plans fail when there is no counsel, but with abundant advisors, they are established. So being the Greek scholar that I am, just kidding, but I did do some research. And when this verse is using the word fail here, it literally means to break or to frustrate or to go wrong, which I thought was really intriguing because it shows a realistic viewpoint that when we make plans, especially if that's independently and siloed and we're not bringing counsel or accountability, things that we've talked about in previous episodes, those plans do have the potential to seemingly go well for a while. And I think that can be such a hard thing as a business leader because it's like, I did it. I made this decision. I put no systems in place, but I made the right decision and things are going well.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't, this verse doesn't say that when you make plans without systems, without counsel, they will immediately crash and burn. It's literally telling us that, like, it could go well for a while. It will eventually fail. It will eventually break. It will eventually go wrong. And so while we walk this tightrope of performance versus dignity, honoring both a high-performing culture and a workplace that values people, I'm reading between the lines a little bit here, but I believe this verse speaks to the concept of we've got to have some systems in place to help us do that. Like, we can't just rely on ourselves and our own very faulty hearts and desires and human brokenness to do this well, to both have a high-performing company and a company that honors and gives dignity to people. We just cannot do it on our own. We've got to have some systems in place. Speaking to a previous episode, we got to have some accountability. Yeah. And so, again, plans fail when there is no counsel, but with abundant advisors, and I'm reading between the lines to call advisors both outside counsel, systems in place, accountability, then our plans are established. That's it.
That's a good, and if you are, like, we talked a lot about kind of like potential symptoms that we've experienced, that we're experiencing. If you're experiencing any of those, like, we would love to talk to you about them. We'd love to sit down, process that, share even more of the lessons we're learning, of what we have learned and continue to learn on the journey. So reach out, click in the show notes, find us, connect with us. We'd love to talk even more and more about the things we're learning, about everything that Aaron just summarized there at the very, very end. Well done, team.
Wrapped up the series.
We did wrap up 4-part series, 4 of 4. Check and mate. Well done. Well done. Thank you for sharing your time with us. And until next week, choose life. Thanks for tuning into our show. If you want to learn more about how you can integrate your faith into your business, download our integrated business guide for free by clicking the link in the show notes below. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.